we started with thinking about fundraising and the use of various volunteers to help us in that. And then we talked about the different methodologies, uh, how can we get good at fundraising. And now let's take it that we have become good at fundraising, and funds are coming in, donations are coming in. And now we need to make sure that we're good stewards of the donation that come in, so that the donor care aspects of it, because getting the funds in is just, I would say, just quarter of the problem, acquisition as it's called in fundraising parlance. But the retention and the growth, that is the bigger, 75%. If we can retain our donors and we can get them to become advocates for us, to become bigger donors for us, to become our friends for life, that then is the real success of fundraising, not just the first donation that comes in, which is just a mere acquisition. So today, the webinar is really going to focus on donor stewardship. And it's all in the good book, because at the end of the day, a donor would stay, and the donor we want to join our journey is that person whose heart makes him or her willing. Because, people may just give a donation because they just feel that they need to say yes to, they can't say no. But that is not much of a willing heart. So we want to make sure that those who come forward are the ones whose heart cheers them and whose spirits are willing to join the journey. And hence, we talked about the communications. What is our narrative in terms of how we present the CADIS work, the impact, as well as the need? So that is where the stewardship journey should go. So if for the next 2 hours, we will talk about defining what donor stewardship is and the importance for long-term fundraising success, not just the here and now. One of the drawbacks in fundraising is we put in a lot of effort on the front end, getting the donor in, and then we celebrate like, yay, somebody's supporting us. But how long into our journey do they keep at? The next time there is a disaster, do we still have to go ask them, or are they calling us first and saying, hey, how can I be of assistance? And if you have that kind of relationship, then we can say our fundraising is a successful, missionary, if you were to call it. Second, of course, we discuss how effective stewardship aligns with the values, the Catholic values of CADIS, where the whole idea of gratitude and responsible resource management is aligned. There is this possibility of ensuring people live that value. And how are we ensuring our fundraising messaging and the way we fundraise aligns with these values? And then lastly, of course, we'll do a quick overview of the 4 pillars, because one is the gift acceptance, once we get the donation. Then the acknowledgement, how, whether it's the receipting, which is more the administrative part, and then also the acknowledgement in terms of genuinely being thankful. Very often I find that when donors give, right, if you think of the process, they have to read or hear or meet someone who has presented to them the idea of supporting CADIS. So that's one step. Then they have to decide that, yes, I'm going to make that commitment or that donation. Second step. Then they have to go figure, am I going to write it out as a check? Am I going to make it out from my credit card deduction, or I'm going to make a down? So that's the third step. And then they have to physically sit and key in or write out or sign up. That's the fourth step. Then the fifth step is they have to do that submit button, or go, literally, if they're still using the post, go and drop it in the mailbox. The fifth step. They have taken so many steps. And what do? After we receive the money? Maybe one letter. and in some cases, which is totally cringeworthy, we even say computer generated, no signature needed. It's like, oh my God, I took all the steps to make sure my money gets to the cause that I want to support through CADIS. And all I got in return was a receipt that says we didn't even have time to sign your receipt because it's computer generated. And very often our finance would do it because they're not fundraisers. Their job is to ensure that they get the receipt, and they will do what is required from a finance point of view. They may not necessarily think of it as a fundraiser. So we need to make sure when we talk about acknowledgement and recognition, we are working as a team with the finance folks, the communications folks, whoever, or if we are it, then we ourselves ensuring that that's done well. Then the recognition. Do we know who are our top 5 donors? Who are our longest serving top donors for the past 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be, who have repeatedly supported us? And are we recognizing them? And that doesn't mean giving them a big party or a very expensive gift, not at all. But how are we engaging them in a way that they feel recognized for being whoever they are to our organization? And then, of course, ensuring that circle keeps going on and on and on, so that that ongoing engagement with our current donors is in place. So that's basically what donor stewardship for fundraising success is, and what I hope to cover today. So let's start with the definition. It's basically the art of maintaining meaningful relationship with our donors, because and again, it's maintaining that meaningful relationship. If we recognize, we acknowledge, we engage, as long as we do all of that, it becomes meaningful for the donor. Put ourselves in the donor's shoes. What would we want? How would we want to be taken care of? And second, it's a comprehensive approach to engage donor that goes beyond the initial gift. So other than saying thank you for your gift, how do we have a very systematic, comprehensive way in which we engage donors, and a strategic process of acknowledging, engaging, and recognizing donors over time. So as we go along, we will talk about each of those steps. So the key components of good donor stewardship: timely acknowledgement. How long do we have a policy in place that once a gift comes in, and especially with disaster response, right? There's so much to be done. So what happens once a gift comes in? How many days does it take for us to, one, acknowledge, to provide whatever, for like receipts and things like that? So in the chat, may I ask for you, for question 1, I'm going to stop sharing for now. For question 1, may I ask in the chat, can you put down how long currently does it take for you to acknowledge a gift? So say a disaster strikes, you send out a mail, and the checks are coming in, or the transfers are coming in, or the credit card donations are coming in. What policy do you have in place? Like, by when, if I were to do it, by when will I get the first acknowledgements to say, thank you, we've received your donation of XYZ dollars, pesos, whatever the case may be? Can you use the chat function and put down for me? In your organization, what is the timeline by which a donor gets the first receipt or acknowledgement of their donation? Within a week, said Chris. Yeah, okay, that's a good time frame. What about the others? Do you have a policy in place where finance knows, fundraising knows? Okay, Julio, good. 1 to 2 days, at least a week. Okay. Anybody else? Benny, actually, your Benny brother. Sibu. As soon as we receive it. Okay.
Basically the same with us, Usha, also. Sorry, I don't know how to, I've only got the old iPhone, okay?
No worries. Yeah, you can speak up.
As soon as we receive it, we give them the acknowledgement of it, and then within the next 7 to 10 days, we always send them a certificate of appreciation.
Okay, good. Okay, so that is a good policy, right? Where you first immediately, even if the fundraising department could even do it, right? Because there are different departments at play when the donation comes in. So fundraising, checking with finance, give us, which are the donors that have given the donation, or the portal if you're using an online portal, all the names, at least to say thank you, we've received your gift, and a receipt will follow, or the certificate would follow, and all of that. So the sooner we're able to do that, that the better it is. Sharing of who from Korat, right? You say as soon as we receive it, can you one of you unmute yourself and tell me what are some of the steps you take? So your donation comes in, then what happens? Benny, you want to tell us?
Since the donations are coming from different parishes, so we sit 1 week so that all within 1 week, so we have a total how much is the cost, and then we what we call that, we send it the total donation with a specific or particular donor with specific amount.
Okay, good. Dottie, would you like to share how you do it? You said as soon as you receive it. What are the steps you take as soon as you receive it?
To me, I
Yes.
say as soon as you receive it, if it's possible, if you have possible to communicate with the donator, it will be the best way, the best time to say, I received your donation. To me, I understand it. If it's possible.
Yeah,
If you have
yeah.
possibility to
So
communicate.
minimally telling them that thanks, we received your donation, especially in disaster response situation, right? Where people are wondering, did it even go through? Did they reach? Because they have taken all those steps to do it. So they're always looking for. Chris, what are some of the steps you have in place in terms of responding to your donors?
Usually it takes a little while to process. We get a check, it has to go through us, then it has to go get deposited through finance, and then we do a thank you acknowledgement, and it just takes a while. I'd like to do it within 24, 48 hours, but we don't have someone that does full-time data entry. I'm doing other things, so sometimes it gets put back to the end of the day or pushed to the next day. But I do hand sign every letter regardless of the amount, and I try to put a little note, even if it just says "God bless" on it, or thank you so much. I do think that really, I've always done that as long as I've done fundraising. So
perfect. Yeah. And these are all different. All of you have shared little tips that are useful. And one thing I find is whether it's online, especially many of the donations in Asia comes online too, or even if it is checked, when people sign up for something, to put a little, you will be hearing back from us within the next 3 days or within a week, so that at least they know when to expect the acknowledgement, and especially with disaster response, you can just make it sound really, personal, to say it's all hands on deck here. Thank you so much. You will hear back from us once we have, banked your check or, cleared your donation within a week, 4 days, 5, whatever the number, more or less, and a number it. So at least that expectation is managed. And in a way, it makes it also very personable to say, we are all on hands on deck because of this situation. So bear with us. And people, fundraising is fundraising. People are okay with that. But the whole idea is to allow them to know what to expect. The better we manage expectations, the better the relationship is, not just for fundraising, life itself. All right, so that is what timely acknowledgement of receipt is. And then regular communications and updates. We don't have to wait till the next disaster. We have to have that cadence of reporting back to say, oh, we've cleared for stage 1. We're now moving on to stage 2 of our recovery work, or whatever the stages are that you are working on. Or you're not working on disaster recovery alone. You are doing resilience work, whatever it is, then you're reporting it. Demonstrating impact of the donation. So making sure your communication actually shows the impact. And again, may I ask you in your chat, how do you demonstrate? Now you've got that initial donation or a repeat donation. In the chat, can you put down, how do you show them, the impact while you are thanking, or a week or 2 after you have received the donation? Can you put on the chat what are some of the steps you take? Okay, sending pictures, that's a good, so kind of progressive. The pictures speak 1,000 words. Yes. What else? Oh yeah, on Facebook and website. That's a good one. Sending them the link to wherever you have posted it, just to update. On websites, yes. Matthias, how do you give accountability of the funding? Give an example, or can you tease it out a little more? How do you do it? You can type it out, or you can unblock and speak up. Okay, so soft copy. All right. All right. Giving restrictions. Chris, you want to share a bit more about how donors may actually ring-fence the donation?
Sure. So we get gifts for a lot of different things, a lot of different areas, international support, local support for our local campus. It might be for a capital gift or something. We have kind of a form thank you, but we use a mail merge. We'll export it out of our database of what it's specifically restricted for, whether it's a memorial gift or something. And then that way we're acknowledging to the donor that we understand that it's restricted for this, or this is the intention of that. Obviously, we do different things if we are soliciting for something specific, a project or an annual thing. Then we will do a lot of what has already been said here, videos or Facebook, social media posts or photos to update them on the progress.
Perfect. Consuelo, you want to share how you would report the results? What are some examples of how you report the results?
Sorry.
Consuelo?
Yes. Well, I am not experienced of this, but I think that to report the results to the donors is a good way to share with them the activities and so on.
Perfect. And some of the examples Arista posted are all the ways in which you will report, right? One is the results of what is being done now, and one is the results after, like the before and after kind of thing, right? Where it was and where it is now. Writing letters, personally signing it, and reporting on the progress, all of them would good ways to ensure that the donor feels, yeah, my donation did count, however big, however small it may be, that it mattered, and things are proceeding, and lives are being saved or built or rebuilt, whatever the case may be. Okay, and last is personalizing the engagement strategies. What are some examples? What could be some examples, if you've not done it already, of personalizing engagement strategy? So you've got the donation, you've said thank you within a couple of days, within a week, whatever the time frame that you do that, and then you have given them some report, like a quarterly reporting, for example. This is where we are now. We are nearly there, or we're halfway there, whatever the case may be. How can you personalize the engagement strategy? You want it to be a communication, you want it to be a conversation, not just you sending stuff, right? So they have responded by making the donation. What else can you do to make them respond? So personalizing engagement. What are some examples you could think of where you keep getting them to do something other than making a donation? Because that's how the engagement tightens, right? It's like friends. We may not go out all the time, but there are other things we do, and that bonds that friendship. Well, so what are some of the engagement strategy for a donor? So it's not all this while we're talking about what we send out, right? We send out pictures, we send out videos. What else can you ask the donor to send to you? Yes, prayers, mass offerings. Yeah, sending product produced from the community. You may kind of cross-sell. You may ask them to buy. Okay, updating. Matthias, can you tell what you mean by personnel? You're asking them, people, where anybody can volunteer? Can you help me understand?
Yes, well, I would say that we can ask them, though we have already seen that personnel is also part of the fundraising and also the donation. There are some people who are interested in giving funds, and do you find that they have also expert persons or expert personnel in their group or in their association? So if we request them to send us some personnel that can fill in a lot, instead of having funds, they can come and empower many people instead of having little dollars. Thank you.
Yes, that's very good. Yeah, so that's another way, So you're keeping that communication going. And here are some examples I found useful. So some of you said you post on your website, you post on your Facebook or social media. You can ask them, we'd love for you to share it with 3 of your friends. Here is the link to a post. Will you help us share? We're not asking for donations. We're not asking them. We're asking them, will you give the gift of voice? Will you share? Some of you said you would do a video, and in the video, maybe you're covering the story of a family who is being affected. You could even say, would you do a prayer request, for that family and others like them who have been impacted? And will you send a little prayer or a link here so that we can share your prayer with the families that are needing that hope and that, and engaging. And that goes back to this whole idea of the Christian Catholic values, right? We are asking them whether they would do that. So giving the gift of voice, giving the gift of prayers, that's how you would engage. And many of them feel connected, even closely, further to the donation. So think of different ways in which, if you're sending them a Facebook, next thing you want to do is ask them whether they will share your post so that you can amplify work. If you say, oh, we're so blessed, we've met our target, you want to send them a gratitude request. Will you next Sunday offer a gratitude from us for helping us get to the milestone? Or you can say, we need more prayers. Can we have this prayer request read out in your Bible studies or wherever is your opportunity, so that more people could join us in making an impact, not just in donation, through prayers, through volunteerism, through whatever ways in which sharing of the Facebook post, whatever the ways in which they think their hearts stir to be of value to the work being done. So try to personalize the engagement so that they feel that they're on a journey together with you, not just as a donor. Okay. So moving on, let's talk about how, why it matters, because one, of course, it helps retain. So as I said, acquisition, getting the donor is only 25% of the problem, of the success. The remaining 75 is retaining and getting them to give more, not just donation, in other ways also. So increasing donor retention, encouraging larger and more frequent gifts, building a community of committed supporters, because if they then share the Facebook post, they're talking to their friends. Hey, I'm so proud that I did what I did. I'd love you to know that there's a bunch of people in our backyard or across the pond who is working on this particular situation. And maybe the word gets around sooner, faster. And then, of course, enhances the organizational reputation and trust, because then people, and trust at the end of the day is core to any fundraising. And when an individual believes or a community believes that these guys can be trusted, they keep communicating with us. We know how they're using the money. We know how those impacts is happening. Highly likely it will generate more funding. And of course, the benefits, no rocket science here. Sustainability, the more long-term fulfillments you have, high likely that you're not starting at ground zero at every time you're doing a fundraising. You already have a list of committed donors, and then you're building on it rather than each time you start at ground zero. Creation of a donor advocate and ambassadors, people who are willing to give the gift of voice and influence, improve donor satisfaction and engagement, just feeling that they're friends of CADIS, not just donors to CADIS. This does make a big difference in the way people will react when you send them fundraising appeals in the future. And it's a foundation for planned giving and major gifts. So somebody may have given, just as an example, $1,000, maybe too big, too small, depending on the country you're from. And that same person may be able to give 10,000 at some point in time. But then if you haven't nurtured that relationship, you don't have the right to even ask them for a big gift, because you have not nurtured the relationship to ask for the next step in the journey. So we want to make sure that foundation for asking bigger gifts is made by us. So I just wanted to touch on the values of gratitude and responsible resource management. I mean, for CADIS especially, you are known for that. Your stories talk about that. How are you then utilizing that to get through to your donors? The whole idea of gratitude, reflect on the Catholic virtue of gratitude for God's blessings, acknowledging donors as partners in the mission. So the way we say it should live that values that we have, and then cultivates a culture of appreciation and humility. So the way we write our stories highlights that culture of appreciation and humility. Responsible resource management aligns the whole social teaching of stewardship of the resource, the gifts that we've got, how we are doing it, how the volunteers are helping out, how we're making the dollar work harder so that families and individuals can rebuild themselves, ensure efficient and effective use of the donation. What are we doing to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck, so to say, to make it efficient. We're not just throwing away money on things that are not impacting the lives of our communities. and demonstrate the accountability and transparency to the donors by telling them, you know, we were able to get sponsors so that we could reduce the cost of whatever. And those are ways in which you would show that you're responsible. So very often that's what happened, right? A group of people will try to get a corporate sponsorship, a company to support. Another group will work with the churches and the diocese, and another group of people will work with the lay people, but they're not talking among themselves. If we did get a corporate company coming and supporting, we should be telling the rest, so-and-so is doing this for us, and they're sending 100 of their employees to volunteer, so we can bring down the cost of actually doing some project somewhere. And that means your donation is going to work harder for us because now we have other people joining. We should be sharing those stories. Unfortunately, we don't use that to create that sense of responsible resource. You know, for us, yeah, the volunteers are doing a good job. That's a good thing. But we don't package it in our fundraising. And we could, and we must. So we should demonstrate that accountability and transparency to our donors. And then, of course, serving others, connecting the donor to the impact of their giving and reinforcing this whole Catholic call to serve and support one another. And how is our narrative then, being strong about it and saying, yeah, we have a call, and we're asking you to join us, to continue joining us. Okay. All right. So in the chat group, I asked you for some of those questions. We have some of the answers, but it will be good. That was just to, get you thinking. Father Aris, will you help us send them to a group? And if you would be so kind, all of you, I want someone to be a scribe and someone to present when you come back so that we don't waste time finding who is going to present. So in your group, off the bat, decide who is going to present when you come back. And put your heads together and think of creative ways in which you would demonstrate impact. Let's focus on 3 and 4. Demonstrate impact of the donation and personalized engagement strategies. Welcome back. I hope the conversation was of some help to get, first of all, just to get you to talk to each other and to get the ideas going. Can I ask Group 1, Father Alphonse, would you, on behalf of your team, share?
I agree. I'm going to jump in. I was asked to share, so okay. If that's okay.
You've been volunteered. Sure.
I've been voluntold. Yes.
Like a good leader.
Yes. We had a great conversation and heard some great things. And I'm going to kind of put 3 and 4, demonstrating impact and personalizing engagements strategies, kind of together. So hopefully you'll define which one is which. But we mentioned provide video clips of what's going on and talk about how their money impacted. Kind of show the end product, so if it's a specific product, show what actually was completed. Invite people to become part of the planning process for the next time. Show the outcomes. One of my favorites was invite them to visit and have an on-site visit to see exactly how their money is impacting people. Donors often see things that you may not recognize, and then they say, hey, I see that door needs to be fixed or something, how can I help with that? One of the things that I said was, a lot of the giving is transactional. We ask them to give, they give, and it's a small investment. When we're trying to engage them in strategizing, we want to build a relationship deeper than just we ask you for money, you give. We want you to, eventually make a larger, major gift or continue to grow your gift by seeing the impact that you are making on the organization. And then the other thing is make sure that the people who are being impacted are thanking the donors with their personal stories.
Perfect. And very good ideas. And I hope all of us, collectively, if we start making it part of our overall donor stewardship strategy, then CADIS as a whole would have a robust and systematic way of doing donor engagement, impact reporting, and hence moving from, as Chris and the group said, from transaction to relation. Okay, cool. Can I go to group 2, Julia? Who will be presenting?
Okay. So we have discussed, and more or less the results that emerged from the chat are the same. These are the strategies, but there are some strategies that can be implemented that are very interesting. For example, the collection and publication of donors' pictures. So, of course, they have to agree, but it is nice to collect their picture to have a more to have a major impact for the cause. And I was wondering if in Italy, if it will be possible, or how the donors can react to be published. But this is an option that can be considered, and in Thailand and in Taiwan it works. So why not? Why not? And another thing is to send monthly, weekly reports to them, to the donors. And something else is, of course, to acknowledge them every time. And the best thing is it would be to have a department dedicated, as this is the case of Taiwan, and I think also of other countries. Also, to include CADIS or CADIS offices in a bigger reality, such as Chameleon Foundation, let's say, that can be can have a higher impact.
All right. Cool, good ideas there. And this whole idea of donor recognition, it could be a donor wall, whether, with photo, without photo. It could be a virtual donor wall, right? That keeps changing every time on your website or your Facebook or your Instagram, using technology. Some of these can be done. So it is not for perpetuity, but at least it acknowledges for a time. Can we go to group 3, Arlinda and team?
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just so sorry because there's some technical problem with my laptop. That's why I have to shift to my phone now. So I came in late in room 3. So when I arrived in room 3, they were apparently waiting for me. Nobody was speaking. I'm just so sorry about it. And then when finally they could hear me, so we heard Kulibari from Africa. He said something like when they receive donations, so they would give a Thanksgiving mass, and they invite people and then thank their donors through the mass. And of course, they say their prayers, thanking their donors. And Robert also from Australia said something like writing in magazines about the donations they received. Yeah, and then unfortunately, we were just cut off by the 58 seconds. So maybe I would like to request Consuelo or Anita to maybe chip in their experiences, if it's possible. Sorry, we just ran out of time because I arrived late in room 3. So perhaps we can just have some sharing, a little sharing before we close room 3. Yes, Anita, please. Or Bob. And sorry, I didn't get the other members of group 3. Yes.
I think you seem to have done a good job already.
Oh, okay. No.
And anybody else want to speak from group 3? Any points that was missed out? If not, we continue. Father Aris, you have anything to add?
Yeah, we have not done yet, but this is an idea, but we plan to make it next year, no? So we are planning to invite some of the donors, no, to get exposed to where we are working on the ground in some of our projects, actually. So since we have projects like in the Philippines, so we plan to bring them to the Philippines, invite them, and for a 3-day getting together. And a very important in this occasion is they're going to hear directly from the beneficiaries of the project, and they're going to tell personally their testimonies. So I don't know if this thing will work. We have not done this yet, but we have been thinking and planning, and this will be on for next year.
Perfect. And since you're planning that, I will just share with you another client of mine who did this. So when the donors went there, because donors are representatives of the organizations, or they're themselves individual, but at the end of the day, they're still individuals. So we had one of the donors who made of course, with permission, made a little video of herself on the site, and then she posted it out on her personal Facebook, not the institutional Facebook page, and which in turn gotten a lot of responses, because many of our friends were like, oh, you're there, can you please also add us to become donors? And that made a big difference. So when you're planning that, may give them opportunities to amplify their visit, so that it may actually snowball into something. The donor visit becomes in itself a fundraising opportunity. Yeah. In addition to the thank you.
Human Development Agency.
Alinda, you saying? All right. Okay, so that was in terms of what we could do in getting that relationship going. Now let's look at building on that relationship. So personalized communications, especially if you know some of your major donors, some of them may be giving $1, $10, so they are the mass. We still have to thank them, but there is a level at which we can afford, there has to be a cost benefit analysis, right? What kind of communication? But when it comes to some of the major donors or bigger donors, or donors who are part of a bigger network, personalized communications make a big difference. Regular updates on the impact that we talked about. Donor recognition program. Do you know, if you already have donors, who are your top 5 donors, your top 20 donors, whatever the numbers, depending on how many donors you have, and what kind of recognition are you offering them? And then exclusive events and experience. And Father CADIS, what you just mentioned, surely that exclusive events and experience, the donor site visit is a classic example of that. Some internal strategies for creating a culture of gratitude. Now, we talked about our culture of gratitude. Regular staff training on donor-centric approaches, so that it's across the organization, whether it's communications department. So I know Group 2 talked about having someone dedicated to ensure that there is somebody on the team, and Taiwan has it, who's looking at stewardship. But we want to make sure those who are doing the fundraising front end, those who are doing direct marketing or Facebook posts or social media posts, those who are doing the whole communications, website, brochures, the finance people, and the people on the ground who are working with our communities, all of them have a donor-centric approach, so that they are thinking of possibilities, stories that they can feed back, to the teams, to highlight in your regular updates. Implement a gratitude first policy in all donor interactions. Thank first, and then think of other ways in which you would engage them. And then share donor impact stories in team meetings. So this, I'm talking of donor impact stories. very often we get our beneficiaries, the people impacted, the communities, to thank the donor. How often have we asked the donor, do you have a message of how this engagement has impacted your life that we can share with the community? And you would be surprised at how grateful they are that they were given the opportunity, or they were chosen to be of value to that community in their time of need. So that, so it is both ways, asking the donor, what has been the impact of the work we have done with and through you, to your life, your family, your congregation, whatever the group that they represent, your school, and so on and so forth. So think of it, don't just think of it as a one way, where we are giving beneficiary or community updates. We are asking donors on updates of how that's impacted their lives or the way they have seen things. Encourage all departments to participate in this stewardship effort, because it has to be a team sport. Just having one person trying to do that may not always work. Creating a culture of appreciation. So first we talked about a culture of gratitude. Now how establish a donor of the month program. These are just some ideas that I'm sharing. And that donor doesn't have to be only the big donors, right? It could be a young boy who saved up his allowance and bought something that can be given to a child in the community. Whatever the case may be, implement or organize by Thank You Day. Whatever you may call it by any name. I'm just stating the idea is appreciation and gratitude. A gratitude journal for staff reflection. Get everybody on the team to write off what specific to the project or specific to the work of CADIS. What are some gratitude reflections that you have, and share it with the wider audience to say, this is what our head of programs had to share with us today, of how the work she does or he does is changing the lives around her or him, whatever the case may be. Incorporate donor appreciation into mission statements and core values, making sure that at any time, donor is not an outsider who just sends in the money, but is part of. And I think it was group one who talked about, Chris talked about, where they are part of the strategy of recovery and resilience, and not just someone who sends the money. So this is take a photo if you need to of the activity, so that when you're in your room, think of a 6-month donor communications calendar. I'm just asking for 6 months, i.e. from here till into early next year. So it straddles Christmas, and maybe go over to Easter if needed. So we have September, October, November, December, January, February. You can go into March, April if needed. But just something we can work on. Include at least one update per month. So think of what kind of updates you would think of. Consider the different channels. So it could be an email update. The same email update message can be put in some photos and become a social media post, which again can be a direct mail request for phase 2, whatever the case may be. Present your calendar later. So just show us what are some ideas you would think of. Disaster response update, resilience project milestones. I'm just giving you something to trigger your thinking. It doesn't have to be only these. Donor spotlights, impact stories, testimonials, upcoming events, volunteer opportunities, anything else. Welcome back. I know these are all touch and go activities given the time, but the whole idea is it's building towards the November workshop, where hopefully these ideas you will come with your plans, and then we can all collectively critique it and help you plug some of the gaps you may have, or learn from the strengths you have shared, so that we can try and replicate across all CADIS organizations. Okay. All right, welcome back. This time I can start with group 3. Arlinda, may I ask you to,
Okay.
and hopefully things worked out this time, to share what the calendar looks like based on your discussion?
Okay, actually, I had we were actually from 4 countries. So Africa, Australia, Philippines, and Kenya. Okay, so from Africa, so we it was actually Collie Valley who said that they have testimonies of beneficiaries sharing online with their donors. It's not every month sharing, but every 3 months. And they also do emails to their companies who donate to them. And also the young people go and take videos of their work with the beneficiaries and post this in Facebook and YouTube. Yes, so that was what he shared. And from in Australia, so Bobby said that he also makes his communications monthly to his donors, and it's very personal. He does it through Facebook, and he has also different communications also with different companies and with different organizations to let them know what is happening with their organization on board. And so the Bob always tries to get in touch what he said we're doing at home, no, what he's actually doing at home. And in fact, his calendar is very full. That's what he said, very, very full. That was his term. And Kenya, Nancy said she apologized that she's not really involved with the communications with their donors, so she didn't have much to share. Now, for us in the Philippines, we actually honestly didn't come out with the calendar yet, but we will come out with a calendar. Our organization, the Visayas Primary Healthcare Services, so of course, CADIS is actively supporting us, and it's the Italian Episcopal Conference, which is funding us. So we really plan from now on to keep in touch regularly with our CADIS, to give Father Aries updates every month through emails, and we're going to share pictures of our activities through emails, and so that he can forward it to our to the Italian Bishops Conference, the CI. Yeah, so it's an eye-opening for us actually that we have to build a very sustainable donor stewardship, maintain our relationship with our donors. Yeah, not just only infrequently, keeping in touch with them, but we're guilty of that actually. We have to really regularly update them, like what Bob and Coulibaly said. In Africa and in Australia, they're really keeping their donors on board with what they're really doing. Yes, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Arlinda, and group 3.
You're welcome.
And yes, and very often the calendar really helps us to be, deliberate about it. So once you have it, everybody knows that, on this month we need to do this, so they can feed into information that can be valuable to whatever is being planned. Okay, group 2, Julia, and the restaurant group 2. Would you
Yes, actually, we don't have a calendar because we were just brainstorming and then the time ended. But may I ask Chris or Father Mars to share what you said at the very beginning of when we started the group?
Here in Taiwan, we have a regular, like a small magazine that includes everything, a sort of acknowledging of what you have done and for the donors to know the updates of our projects. But this one is because here in Taiwan, we have really one department for the for solicitation and then the publication. They are the one really doing everything to have a regular updating communication with donors. So that's the advantage we have here because we have already an institution who does everything. And CADIS just ride on the on those facilities that of course they are also the one financing CADIS with all the projects that we have.
All right. Cool. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we can learn from each other, and we can, transfer the knowledge and experiences across the various organizations. Over to you, Chris. You have to add?
Sure. Well, we just took, September through February, so we figured in the middle of that would be year-end giving for December. So all the things that we talked about, stewarding donors and, sending kind of a crescendo up to the ask in December. And then after that, then showing kind of the impact that we made our goal. You helped us make our goal and create a plan through January and February to kind of tee up the next giving cycle of probably Easter or something like that. So, or Good Friday or Almsgiving or what have you. So, just kind of do it month by month and base it on your solicitation schedule.
Okay. Good. Yes. And once you have the calendar, then you're not just randomly sending it stuff, right? You're building to it. And even from the donor's point of view, they see one building onto the other. So they feel they're more educated to make a gift, and hopefully a sizable one, because now they feel a lot more educated rather than just the random email that they may have read and decided to give an amount. Yeah, cool. Can I ask Group 1, Father Alphonse's team?
Yes, good evening. I was not able to come in directly. So in our group, we were not able to talk all, only some of us.
Okay.
And we see that some of the things are needed to be communicated regularly on a monthly basis, depending on what kind of communication and what type of things that we need to share with our donors. Yeah. Like reports, maybe not in a short time, but it's a long-term report. But certain things could be in the experience of our fathers, even just little things on daily basis or based on the activities, not necessarily once a month or once in a while, but depending on what we do. Just want to share that this is what we do, this is what we have, and so the donors will see our active involvement in the projects that we do. So we see that some things are on the regular basis, on a structured way of delivering. Some things are just spontaneous, event-driven way of communicating with the donors. Some are in a formal way. Some are just to keep in touch, to maintain good relationship with them.
Good.
We only reach until that far.
All right. Yeah. And this whole point about being spontaneous. Yeah. The calendar gets the big chunks in place, but the spontaneous ones, something exciting, something depressing, something frightening, whatever the emotion that you hope to communicate, that can be, interspaced in between. I've been at this for 35 over years. I've never met a donor who has said that they don't like receiving updates. They have said, we hate when they just keep sending us and ask after and ask after and ask. So that's the reality. I mean, it's human nature, right? People like to be remembered when a friend is happy or sad or depressed or worried. That's what fundraising and fundraising is about. So just think of it that way. Cool. All right, so we come to the last part where I wanted to share with you the different types of donors and how you would work on recognition and acknowledgement for each of those different ones, because each of them have to be treated differently. For example, if you're working with if you're working with the mass, where it's a Sunday giving or a prayer request, this mass donors, personal emails, just within a couple of days, or even you may, if WhatsApp, Discord, it doesn't matter what you work on, you may have a group that you would just send a thank you message through. Social media shout outs with donor permission to say, hey, today we had this group or this school or that community who have committed to support us, or this corporate who has committed to support. So kind of media shout outs rather than just asking, recognizing those who have already responded. Success begets success. Usually when people see others are giving, they tend to join. Annual impact reports reflecting, highlighting collective achievements of people who have come together to do something. Invitation to a virtual or on-site thank you event. So Father Aris, you were saying, the donors are going to visit, and could we do a Facebook Live while the donor is on site to say, we're going to do Facebook Live back in India or back in Australia or back in or in Philippines or in Taiwan, and there will be somebody talking us through, so that donors potential donors or current donors who don't make it to the on-site visit but would aspire to be in the next team that goes for an on-site visit. So make it aspirational so that people want to be part of something that's so special. So think of, prayer walls on website where donors can submit prayer requests, all of that. Those are for the mass market, people who don't give big amounts, but still are part of our donor group. The next group, let's talk about regular donors. Those who have given us one-off, will they join us on a monthly basis? Will they put CADIS or the projects onto a monthly giving program? Can we call them whatever nice name, call them faithful supporters, hope builders, whatever you want to call them? Can they be part of a regular program? So instead of giving $100 one-off, they may want to give $10 or $20 or $30, like $1 a day, kind of amount, but every month, which cumulatively comes to a lot more than the $100 one-off. So think about, can you create some kind of, badge, kind of affiliation. If you are a regular donor to CADIS or the projects of CADIS, you will be called the faithful supporter, and you get a little badge when you've completed a whole year of giving. Whatever the case may be, think of how you will make them feel special. A recognition, of course, in a donor roll call, exclusive newsletters from behind the scene. You may have the regular newsletter, but you would have just another 2 pages or 1 page extra for them to say, because you are part of our hope builders or faithful supporters. Here is an update from the project manager who's working on this project and how your money has been pulled even further or made to work even harder, whatever the case may be. So they feel, I'm special because I'm a regular giver. I recognize, and small meaningful gifts like a pin, anything that you think that affinity group would like to have. And then we have the honoring the major donors. Now, when you think of major donors, we're thinking of people who are giving a large amount compared to the rest of your donors. So you draw a line. For some people, as I mentioned, $1,000 may be a large donor. If everybody is giving $10 and $20, $30, somebody who gives $1,000 is a major donor. In some other cases, it would be if everybody is giving a certain amount and somebody gives 50,000, then becomes a major donor. It's up to you to define what a major donor is to your organization. And then having that leadership meeting, naming opportunities for equipments, programs, depending on the amount that they give, VIP access to special events or disaster sites. Like not everybody gets to go, but you get to go because you are a major donor to us. A personalized impact report where it says, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so and it kind of states how their money is working and the impact it's having. And again, giving some kind of a name around it, rather than say you are our major donor, you may call it a cornerstone supporter, whatever you want to. And this is something that I did do when I was with Habitat for Humanity. We used to salvage material from the disaster site and make little plaques out of it. So it's not a commercially, so they would always keep it very, very dearly to say, oh, this is the piece of wood that drifted into during the tsunami. This was during the tsunami that we did it. And they sent us a plaque with that, driftwood that they got, thanking us because we helped rebuild X number of homes and so on and so forth. So, think of creative ways in which you would make being a major donor special. And then, of course, you have corporate donors. Now, the way you do an individual donor would be different from corporate donors. Can they do marketing materials co-branded in a year? Could you think of ways in which a corporate donor would do something co-branded with your organization, featuring stories in organizational publications? They have marketing budget, they have advertising budget, but they don't have, the difference between marketing and reputation, right? Marketing is what they're saying about themselves. A reputation is what you are saying about them. So can you ask a local magazine or a corporate kind of publication or even LinkedIn to say, we're going to post something on LinkedIn about the strong partnership we have with your organization and how you have impacted lives over the X number of years you've been a partner. So think of ways in which you would do something that's of relevance to them. Recognition at public events, employee engagement. So again, compassionate corporate award or something like that at an annual event, depending on the scale of your fundraising. And then again, there are foundations. So whether it is the Italian Bishops' Conference or things like that, which is an entity, right? You may then give a detailed grant report, invitation to participate in program evaluation, for example, recognition in academic or industry publication, depending on which kind of entity they are affiliated with, opportunities to shape future initiatives, to talk about your 3-year plan and say, this is where we are planning to head. These are the kind of work we plan to do over the next 3 years. How would you see yourself taking this journey with us? And so, foundation impact showcase, things like that, so that they are taking multi-year view about the work that CADIS does. All right. Any thoughts, comments? So I've given you like a whole bunch of ideas as well as systematic ways in which, donor stewardship should be thought through. Just like we should think through how we're getting in the money, we should be thinking about how we are sustaining that relationship once a donor comes through our door. Very often I ask, whether it's clients that I work with or previously when I myself was working and was responsible for fundraising, what is the bleed? You know, where is there a leak? Because if you gotten 10 donors last year, and next year you gotten 12 donors, you're cheering, oh, we've got 2 new donors. Is it 10 plus 2? Or is it 12 new donors? Because technically you shouldn't be losing the 10. So you should be having 22 donors, not 12 donors. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 may, you know, for whatever reason may stop. But you should not be losing most of your donors. And unfortunately, very often, I find that every year we are finding new donors, but we are not keeping our existing donor, whether they be mass, whether they be regular, whether they be major, whether they be corporate, whether they be foundation, we're not keeping all of them with us. So, and as I mentioned, we may not be able to retain 100%, but are we at least retaining 60%? Even if 40% we lose? That technically means every year, those 60 would go on to the next year's database, plus you bring in your other 100, your 160. There should be that kind of multiplier. Unfortunately, we seem to be doing very small incremental growth in our donor base. So the question is, how are we ensuring that stewardship so that we are building on, not, you know, reinventing each year? Think about it. Any thoughts, comments? We have the last about 10, 15 minutes.
I would just add that I think stewardship is so important. And, you know, we like to all say we're building a culture of philanthropy, which to most people means, you know, how do we get people to accept to give? But part of the culture of philanthropy, a large part of that is that we don't take for granted giving, and we're not always asking, but we're always moving towards the next gift. And that's not necessarily about a specific campaign or asking or a letter or solicitation. That is, you know, explaining and telling our vision. You know, I think you said have someone donate the gift of spreading the voice or spreading the message outside of just us doing that. You know, we're creating ambassadors who talk to their friends. They love it so much that they want them to come in and support what they're supporting. So it's such an important thing, and don't ever take it for granted that the power of a thank you note or an impact letter or a newsletter, they're so important.
Indeed. Thanks for amplifying that point, Chris. Anybody else want to add your thoughts?
Yes, I was just thinking that this session will be really helpful because we are a kind of switching from an emergency disaster approach to a resilience approach, because attracting donors to respond to an emergency is easier than attracting them to create something longer, or to create a longer project based on resilience. So it will be a challenge, but
totally. And you have to have that, you know, because emergency response is very transactional. There's an emergency, I send the money. That's it. But then you have to bring it to relational, where they'll see beyond just the here and now emergency or when it's in the news, but what happened to them after the emergency, after the cameras were left the scene. That's our job, to ensure that they journey through that. Cool. So that's basically what I wanted to share. And what I have for you is a stewardship plan. So I had where is that? I had an activity, just brainstorming recognition ideas, but you have, in the process of discussing the first two activity, you have thought about some of those things, but we won't spend time today on this brainstorming, but I want you to think of, you know, per category, how am I reaching out to the masses? Is it through the church, through the diocese, whatever, you know, in your community, in your local, or the schools? Is there a way that mass market can be thought about as a category, and ideas for that? Am I reaching out to corporates? Am I reaching out to people who can give major gifts? Am I asking everybody who has ever been touched by the work we do as a donor or a volunteer to become a regular giver? And if so, am I creating a program around, rather than saying, will you please give us to regularly, we are saying, will you be our hope builder or our resilience builder, whatever the case may be. So are you creating some kind of a program around it? So think about each of those donor categories that I shared with you. You may decide, no, I don't want to work on all 5. I'm just going to work on the foundations and the corporates, or just the mass individual, whatever the case may be. Choose the categories you in your organization will do in the next 1 to 2 years, and think of how you're going to create a recognition and stewardship plan. And I'm going to leave you with a little template for you to start your work in preparation for the November workshop, specific to the stewardship work. So this is what I call my 5-step ways in which we could think. So, one-time crisis donors. How are we using our one-time crisis donor? Julia, you talked about it. The emergency response donors. What are we going to do with them in terms of stewardship so that they can become our regular donors? Not all of them will become regular donors, but some of them will. What are we going to do to ensure that these regular donors, out of that, some of them step up and say, we're thinking of being a major donor with you, because we see a lot of areas where you still need help, to ensure that resilience is built, ensure that the families get out of the cycle, of having lived one disaster or another. How are you going to work with entities like the parish, the other partners? How are you going to work with them? What kind of motivations, what kind of recognition will be useful? And then, of course, your corporate and entities, the foundations or the corporates. What are some of the things that you would do with them to ensure that they, and you may decide, no, we're not going to touch corporates for now. Sure, choose where you would be most successful and able to in the coming 1 to 2 years. And then you can start adding as you get good at some of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 different ways in which you can do it. Some of you will need all 5 because the need is so much. You just have to work harder. Some of you may decide you're just going to choose a couple from this and work on it. So figure out what has been the giving history or patterns, not just for yourself, other organizations around you, other like Red Cross. If Red Cross can do it, there's no reason why CADIS can't do it. But we have to figure out how we're going to do it in our way. Yeah. Identify what are the motivations and analyze what kind of communications would they prefer. So this is the step 2. Once you've identified which cluster you're going to work on, think of what will be my immediate impact report like. What is the real-time prayer request I could send out? What channel would I use? Would I do it via Facebook? Would I do it via email? Would I do it through a phone call? It's up to you, based on your culture, based on your realities. On the ground volunteer stories. Am I collecting them? If I'm not, I'll have to start doing it now. If I already have it, how am I then putting it into a communications? Long-term engagement. How are we talking about people who have been engaged with us in a long term? How are we flying their flag, so to say? How are we recognizing and acknowledging them so that others may also feel motivated? How are we going to personalize some of the updates? Number 5. Annual reports, how are we giving what kind of reports are we going to, do we plan to give in terms of highlighting the impact and also connecting donations to the Catholic social teachings of gratitude and good stewardship. And then, what will our quarterly newsletters look like? Ongoing recovery, the whole resilience effort that we are focused on. And this is no rocket science again. I want to make sure I am, and I've just put the same day thank you email. Maybe that's not possible because you have to get a confirmation that the money transfer has gone through, whatever the case may be. Same day becomes 3 days, whatever the case may be. You decide what each of those will look like. I've just put some ideas there. Does not have to be your idea. How are you going to ensure spiritual engagement through the process, and how you're going to ensure education through the process, and then how you're going to evaluate and adapt, your plans from the previous year, and how you're going to make changes for the next year. So some of the key indicators I've highlighted: donor retention, average gifts, and engagement. I find those are 3 solid ways to know whether if a donor continues into year 2, highly likely you've done a good job of the stewardship because he or she has come back. If he or she is giving the same amount, maybe not too bad. But if he or she is giving a bigger amount, that means your stewardship is working because something changed that made him or her want to do more. And then are they engaged through activities and so on and so forth. The feedback mechanisms, how are we keeping that communications going? And of course, continuous improvement. What worked? What could we do little differently? So having that, put into your measurement plan so that we are, every time we find like, oh, we sent it out, but there were a lot, whatever may be the gaps, you want to make sure you plugged it the next time around. It doesn't happen again. For that, you have to document it so that the next year people know not to make that same mistake that you realized this year. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour, and I hope this has been of help.
Okay, so thank you very much, Usha, for such a wonderful time today, and for all those who are here. So we have been journeying this in the past 3 months, so we still have more months to go, and then I think it's going to be more exciting then as we continue to work on our assignments. So sorry for that, but I think just come to think that we're doing this not only for ourselves, not for our organization, but above all, for those who deserve the help that people need, really. And there's a lot actually of calls for some help. And I think your work is so great that we are contributing to that need actually in the world. So that's it. Thank you so much. And have a good day, a good night, a good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Go forth and wave.